Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Friday, October 29th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Moore. The Penn State game is tomorrow, the game against Michigan in 29 days. Ohio State's run through the Big Ten gets a little tougher this weekend when number 20 Penn State comes to Columbus for a primetime game in the Horseshoe. The school asks that everyone in attendance wear scarlet, so plan your wardrobe accordingly. We got our last chance to talk to Ryan Day before the game yesterday in his lightning round press conference. So today is one of those shows we're going to hear directly from him, and then from three of the Buckeyes' elite true freshmen who we got a chance to meet with earlier in the week. Let's start with Ryan Day. He was asked about the potential for Tyreke Smith now that he has been an impact player at times over his career, but he has just had a lot of trouble staying healthy, staying on the field. Now that he should be back this week again after playing last weekend in Indiana, what is his potential moving forward now that he's finally back on the field?
Well, the potential's always been there, and he's had a few things, few injuries that have sidelined him this season. So hoping that as we head into the second half of the season that his best football is ahead of him, because he's veteran and it's important our veteran guys play that way. We're going to win some of these big games, and I know he's working towards that, and he's a very important part of our defense.
The Buckeyes have gotten quite a fast start the last few weeks on offense, which is not really a surprise because they've had a fast middle and fast end to most of those games as well. But the beginning of those games, that's something that coaching staffs will put a lot of emphasis on certain teams. Is that something the Buckeyes put a lot of emphasis on as well? Do they script plays to start the game, or do they have a certain plan in place to start games? Here's Day's answer on that.
We talk about starting fast all the time. I think it's important to set the tone for the game. But, we have a plan in place for when that doesn't happen. Typically the game goes one of three ways. You jump out ahead, you fall behind, or it's kind of back and forth. And, you have to have a plan in place for one of those things happen. Certainly we want to jump ahead. That's part of it. When it comes to preparing for a game, we have opening thoughts that we like, but we don't get nailed down with a script of these exact plays because things change quickly. You might have a good script in hand, but, you start the ball on your own 2-yard line, or maybe you start in the red zone, or second play, 2nd and 12. You don't know what's coming. So you certainly have general thoughts you like, and you work on those as you head into the game. But we try not to get, pinned down on an exact script.
Jackson Smith-Njigba has emerged as one of the Buckeyes' elite wide receivers this year. That is not easy to do in a room with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson also there. But in last year, Smith-Njigba was running with the twos. He was not one of the starters last year. Well, guess who also was with the twos last year? CJ Stroud. So did that opportunity to work together with the twos and run a lot of passes back and forth between the two of them over the course of the 2020 season, is that starting to pay off now? Is that one of the reasons why you're seeing Jackson Smith-Njigba and Stroud seemingly have such a good connection?
I don't know. I think CJ's that way with a lot of our receivers. I think that, they found a good rhythm together, and they've worked really hard this summer. They worked hard in the spring, but certainly in the summer and in the preseason and now during the season to get those things right. I see them staying after with the receivers and working on specific routes that are specific to that week's game plan. And I think overall he's done a good job with all the receivers in that area.
You're going to hear from true freshman wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. a little later on in today's show, but Day was asked about him as well. And he was asked specifically about that spin move, that play where he kind of dodged one Indiana tackler, spun around another, and then the two Indiana guys went crashing into each other like bowling pins, and then Harrison took off upfield. So the question was, how many times did they replay that in the team room? Is that one that guys wanted to watch 30 times and they were just howling with laughter? And then more broadly, what does a play like that do for a young player's confidence moving forward?
Anytime you get young guys out there who are working hard in practice, contributing on special teams, who then actually get out there and start to make plays. The play that I would show more than that would be the one we caught over the middle where he got whacked. I mean, that was a tough play, and he hung on to the ball because, the spin plays and the big plays and those type of plays happen because of, their God-given ability. But it's the toughness plays that we see and we recognize, because those are the ones that are going to allow us to play in some of these tougher games. And they just, project into being a good player. But have been impressed with his practice habits, the way he's helping on special teams. And it was good to see him make some plays because I got a feeling he's going to help us here the second half of the season.
Going from Akron to Rutgers to Maryland to Indiana and now to Penn State represents kind of another step up in competition for the Buckeyes. So is this the start of another phase of the season starting now as they sort of head into that home stretch of the Big Ten season?
It's one game at a time, like you said, because if you're looking at it like a heavyweight fighter, like you said, you mess around one round and you get knocked out. So we can't look at it that way. We have to just show up every single game. It doesn't matter who we're playing. Penn State's a very good defense and will be a very big challenge for us, and we know that. And so, it's most likely not going to play out the way that the last few games have played out, or play out like any game that's happened before. We know that and understand that and have to adapt for whatever that means. But the focus just has to be on right now, and that means having great meetings this afternoon, having a really good Thursday practice, and then a great Friday walkthrough, and then being a competitive excellent Saturday night. And it goes back to the fundamentals and having the discipline to stay locked in, to maintain our confidence, but be disciplined enough and stay humble enough to understand that all it takes is one Saturday. And again, like, your season can be ruined. And that's something we always talk about and we stay locked in on, and that takes discipline.
Offensive lineman Paris Johnson was a really elite and unique prospect as a high school player, but he has shown himself to be a really elite and unique player at the college level as well. Day was asked, how has he seen Paris Johnson demonstrating that since becoming a Buckeye?
I think he made the transition from tackle to guard, and I was very impressed with that. First off, just his willingness to jump inside and say, I want to get on the field, not saying, well, I can only play tackle. First off, that really helps with his versatility moving forward, but it just shows you what type of teammate and leader he is. And I think he's learned very quickly. His feet are moving well. He's understanding the calls. He plays very, very hard. And so, as we play some of these, really good defensive lines, as we're about to do, those guys are going to get challenged more and more. And, they're going to have to work through, the good plays and the bad plays. But as a whole, the offensive line, I think, has come together with some chemistry. I know that, Coach Stud wants them to play tough, and in Paris has done that so far.
In addition to being a big game week, this is a huge week for the Buckeyes' future in recruiting. A lot of guys who came on unofficial visits over the summer heard about how the defense was going to change. Now that this is no longer theory, it's now getting put into practice. How important is it now that some of those guys are coming back and going to gets a chance to really see this play out in front of them?
No, I think there's two things, for recruits I know that they're excited about. They're seeing that style of defense and what it can do, and how effective it can be. I think you're also seeing that, we'll play young players, and that if you're a young player who wants to play in this style of defense, at the highest level, if you're ready, we'll put you in there. And then we'll also develop you too. There's some guys that, it takes a year or two to get on the field, and that's okay too. So the best players are going to play. So I think they really appreciate that part of it and see the confidence that we're playing with. But going back to your first point about, having a bunch of guys in June and early on in the official visit process, what that really allowed us to do was to gather information that we would typically get when we were in the schools. And it's been a long time since we had been in the schools. And so we hadn't met most of these people in person. So it was great to get them here. Very unique year because of that. When we were very aggressive early on to learn about what the right fit is, because now more than ever in recruiting, it's the right fit, for a lot of reasons. Certainly, that was a great opportunity for us to learn about a lot of these guys. So getting them back now is great because you're building that process. And that's something that would have happened naturally if, it wasn't for the pandemic. We would have had guys on campus more and more. You would have learned and built those relationships, which I think we're doing now. And I feel much more comfortable about the class than I did, 6 months ago.
If you've been on social media this week, you've probably seen Ohio State players tweeting about going to Blue Jackets games, Columbus Crew games this week. That's kind of part of the brave new world of NIL. Those teams can offer Buckeye players tickets or the opportunity to come to games, or, maybe compensate them in some way to be associated with those other brands and maybe draw some extra eyeballs to the Crew and the Blue Jackets and other teams in town. So how do you balance the name, image, and likeness piece of things with the need to get ready to play a really big game this weekend? They had some thoughts on that.
It's just managing your time like anything else. And, understanding that you have to get your rest and keeping things, and prioritized. And that's what discipline is. And that's part of this process. And it's the maturing process. And they're being, provided opportunities that we never had at this age, that any college athletes have ever had. And so, there's a learning part of this, and managing time, and prioritizing again, where you're at with all of your time. So great learning experiences in that area. But yeah, I think we're all learning from it, and our guys are doing a good job of it.
Some of the guys who are coming this weekend for official or unofficial visits were also in Columbus on visits back in June. They had a very big weekend, that first weekend of June, to bring in a lot of people as soon as they could finally open visits back up after the NCAA ended that long dead period. So how important was that first official visit week in June in terms of building the class and then connecting in person with some of the guys who even were already committed to Ohio State without having met the coaches in person?
That was very important. The guys who decided that they wanted to be Buckeyes early on, we wanted to prioritize them and have them on campus, that first weekend, and then get them around some of the other ones who weren't committed and get that feedback back. Because again, we're really in search of the fit, and certainly, we're competitive about who we bring in and everything, and rankings, all those type of things. But really at the end of the day, it's about the right fit, and we want to have the right guys who want to be here. It's not about just coming, and if they don't get on the field, they want to go transfer out or enter the portal. We want guys who want to be Buckeyes and understand what it means to be a Buckeye, because the sustaining of that through the development process is how you sustain a program, and something we're very focused on.
A big game week, and especially a big primetime game week, should be a pretty spectacular atmosphere in the Horseshoe on Saturday night. Ohio State had to play without fans at all last year, and they've had a few lower profile games this year where there wasn't a ton to get too excited about. No disrespect to Akron, but that all changes Saturday with what should be a fantastic atmosphere inside the Horseshoe. So what can a full house at home bring, especially if they're loud? And you'll get that answer from Ryan Day. You're also going to get a quick update on the status of Master Teague here as well.
To me, in this game especially, it can bring a huge advantage for us. And so, I'm asking the Buckeye Nation to be really, really loud when Penn State has the football. And I mean really loud, so that they struggle to communicate, because when they do, that's a huge advantage for our defense, and certainly a big advantage for our defensive ends, and they're communicating on offense. So when we can do that, like actually the last time Penn State was here, I thought the crowd was unbelievable. And if we can replicate that again, that would be huge for us and for the program. So that's big. And a Master, we're hoping to have them available for this game, but we'll see how today and tomorrow goes.
I mentioned off the top of the show that we were going to let you hear from 3 of the true freshmen later on in the show. Well, we have now hit that point. I do like this part of the show because I feel like, you probably have seen and heard enough from CJ Stroud to kind of know what he looks like, know what he sounds like. Some of the veteran offensive linemen and defensive guys, like you probably have a sense for Zach Harrison and Thayer Munford and some of those guys. But some of these true freshmen who are just sort of starting to emerge, you maybe have seen them on the field, but you don't know a whole lot about them off the field. So we're going to let you hear and see and hear from a couple of those true freshmen today. One of them is Denzel Burke. At the start of the season, opposing teams were trying to go right at him. Minnesota targeted him repeatedly in the end zone at one point. But as the season has progressed and Burke has started to make more of a name for himself, the ball seems to be coming at him less and less. So what does he think about that? You're going to hear that answer, and then you're going to hear a follow-up question from the great Tim May.
I would hope so. I guess teams are starting to respect me a little more. At the same time, I really do want them to test me, But if they don't, they don't.
Yeah, what have you learned most about the college game over the last 6-7 games? What is a lesson you didn't know about it that you know now?
Honestly, the physicality. A lot of stronger dudes coming out. Pretty good blockers. Fast pace too. And yeah.
One other thing, what is the biggest change y'all made defensively that's made the difference over the last several weeks from the first two?
I would say us just coming together as a unit and just trusting the process, trusting the changes, and just trust what our coaches give us and just go out there and ball and play what God gifted us. So.
Ohio State fans have been pretty frustrated waiting for running back TreVeyon Henderson to finally get a full load of carries in a game. He has gotten double-digit carries just once in the last 4 weeks, And the only time he got what really amounted to a full workload, he set the school's single-game freshman rushing record against Tulsa. So is that weight frustrating for Henderson too? You'll hear him answer that question, and as well as a follow-up question from Stephen Means of Cleveland.com.
I'm happy with the amount of carries I'm getting right now. I mean, when we're up 50-something against the team, there's no reason to get 20 carries and put myself at risk of getting an injury. So I think they're being smart with the amount of carries I'm getting now. And I think the 20 carries a game, I think that'll come sooner or later.
Are there times where you can kind of feel yourself getting rolling out there, but because of the circumstances, you don't really get to go all out with it? Do you kind of get frustrated with that at all? Just because you feel yourself getting rolling?
No, not really. I mean, whenever my team needs me to make a play, then that's what I do. If it's 9 carries, 7 carries, I'm gonna make the best out of the carries I get.
Another freshman who is promising, who has not yet played as much as some fans might want, is wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. He is someone who everybody around the program couldn't say enough good things about all offseason, but he had just 1 catch for 9 yards in the first half of the regular season. Last Saturday at Indiana, he had 2 receptions for 34 yards, including, yes, that highlight reel play we talked about earlier, where he juked around one defender, put a spin move on another, and picked up a really nice gain. Harrison's dad, of course, is Hall of Famer Marvin Harrison Sr. So what has he told his son about having to wait to see the ball so much this season? You'll hear his answer to that, and then you're going to hear a couple follow-ups from Tim May again.
You know, it's the part of the game. Just get better each and every day. Learn from the guys ahead of you, and, you know, your time will come eventually.
Do you sense more playing time as this year develops? I mean, obviously there's still half the year to go,
I'm not really focused on that. I'm just trying to get better each and every day. If the playing time comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. As long as I get better, I'll be happy.
All right, what have you gotten better at the last 6-8 weeks? What do you know you've gotten better at?
I think definitely my hand combat, my releases. Coach Hart has helped me a lot with that. Usually just working on my feet. That's always been good, but getting my hands better at the line of scrimmage has been really good for me.
Well, I do hope you guys enjoyed that show. I always like getting to talk to the freshmen, get to, get a sense for what they're all about and some of their thought processes. And honestly, for a lot of people, what they actually look like when they're not wearing a helmet and what they sound like. So always a good thing to get to hear from some of the new guys. Always good to hear things from Ryan Day as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed that show. We will have much more coverage a little later on today. Tony Gerdeman and Kevin Noonan and I will probably do our usual Friday afternoon Buckeye Weekly live show. So you can keep an eye on that at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. The best way to make sure you get notified when we do that and be able to be a part of that live Q&A show is to subscribe to our channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. If you're watching on YouTube, just hit that bell or hit the Buckeye Scoop logo that's going to pop up at the end of this video. That'll subscribe you to our channel. That'll get you notified every time we post a new video. So pregame shows, postgame shows, player interviews, all that good stuff. That's all at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.